So hi everybody, welcome to video number 2 of the ITIL V3 V4 series. This video is all about ITIL service strategy book. I've also switched to a new microphone. This is a headset microphone, which I think is better audio than the Blue Yeti did. It was a little bit too sensitive, and I noticed sometimes it sounded like I was screaming into the headset, into the microphone, which I wasn't. This one's actually more comfortable. And I think the audio quality is better. I don't run these videos for any type of audio cleanup software like Audacity or anything like that. I probably should, but honestly, these PowerPoints take many hours to produce, and I kind of want to get the videos out there. So my post-production time is really on recording these videos with my tight schedule to get them out to you guys. Again, these are the normal disclaimers, which I know don't apply to ITIL, but throw them out there anyway. So with that said, let's get started. As noted, this video is about service strategy, which is part of ITIL version 3 and also is addressed in ITIL version 4. We're going to go over all of the processes in service strategy: strategy management for IT services, service portfolio management, financial management, demand management, and business relationship management. This is also the point where I'm going to do a quick shout out to Pixabay. Thank you, Pixabay, for the free stock photos. They're awesome. Highly recommend this site if you guys are a YouTuber or anything you might do. If you're doing type of marketing, Pixabay, it's free, royalty-free stock. I'm not being paid by Pixabay. They are not a sponsor to this channel. I have no relation to Pixabay. I don't know anyone who works at Pixabay. I just like to give credit where credit is due. So first thing to discuss when we're talking about service strategy is to really, stop and think why you're doing something before you think about the how. All too often, people jump to the how before they really address the question of why they're doing it. So really, write down, get it, figure out exactly why you're doing something, not just how are you going to do it. Now, Mintzberg's 4 Ps are really important in service strategy. The first is perspective. Have a clear vision and focus. Again, what you're doing, what is your goal? Your position, where are you in this? Are you from an IT security, IT operations process? What is your perspective on the initiative? The plan, precise notion of how the organization should develop itself. How does this idea, this service that you are working on fit into the overall organization? And pattern. Have a consistent form of how decisions are going to be made regarding your development of this service. Have some type of framework in place. Don't just kind of do things ad hoc. Maybe have weekly meetings to discuss status, have Gantt charts, things like that. Now, terminology, as I noted in the introductory video, is really important in ITIL. I cannot overemphasize this. Getting a good grasp of the ITIL terminology is going to help you pass the exams. It's going to help you communicate with other ITIL certified individuals, and it's going to make your life a lot easier because you're going to know that everybody's on the same page. The first concept to go over is what's called an asset. And again, I have to emphasize this to all of you. The terminology within ITIL is ITIL terminology. It might not transfer to other frameworks, but if you are in the ITIL realm, either from an exam perspective or if you're talking to a fellow ITIL certified individual, ITIL aware person, understand what they're meaning when they say things. So in ITIL, an asset is a resource or a capability. The asset of a service includes anything that can contribute to the delivery of the service. So assets can be, as they show here, it could be a people, it could be applications, it could be process, it could be knowledge, it could be really anything that is useful to the organization. Now, by no means am I saying you need to understand every single asset in your organization, but it's good to know what your available resources and capabilities are. Now, resource is a generic term that includes IT infrastructure, people, money, or anything else that might help deliver an IT service. Resources are considered to be assets of an organization. Again, if we go back to the definition of an asset, you can see it's a resource or a capability. So in ITIL's scope, a resource is a generic term, but this is what it might be. Service portfolio management, or SPM, as it's often abbreviated, is the process responsible for managing the service portfolio. Service portfolio management ensures that the service provider has the right mix of services to meet the required business outcomes at an appropriate level of investment. Service portfolio management considers services in terms of business value that they provide. And this is really important, guys. If you're on a role similar to this, or if your role includes maintaining the service portfolio, it's really important that you have an alignment with how it provides value to the business. This is different from a business case. It is really understanding how it's providing value. And the reason this is important is that sometimes things in the service portfolio no longer are providing value and they need to be retired. So it gives you a way to kind of decide, is this really backing up a business outcome? Because I have been in places, I have done audits and worked with people where there have been services that are running but really aren't really contributing and are just consuming resources for no reason. So this is a great way to figure out, you know, what is good and what isn't needed anymore. Governance ensures that policies and strategy are actually implemented and that required processes are correctly followed. Governance includes defining roles and responsibilities, measuring and reporting, and taking actions to resolve any issues identified. Governance is very important. This is a big keyword today, is governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC. And one of the key takeaways from this definition is roles and responsibilities, measuring and reporting. Things have to be in ITIL. The concept of measuring things is really important. Metrics is a huge part of ITIL. The overarching theme in ITIL is if you can't measure it, you can't control it. You don't know if it's functioning correctly or not. So you need to make sure the processes are measurable. A CBA, or cost benefit analysis, some of you watching this video might be familiar with this, some might not be. It's an activity that involves and compares the costs and the benefits involved in one or more courses of action. This is where you're going to see things like a business case, things like internal rate of return, net present value, return on investment, and value on investment. These are terms we'll go over later on. In short, really this is saying, like, you're going to invest $100 or $1 million in some service, some piece of equipment, some control mechanism. What benefit does it give you? And what you're looking for, obviously, is that the cost is much less than the benefit. So you're spending $100, but you're gaining a benefit of $1 million. Would be an amazing cost-benefit analysis. How you actually do this, we'll go over later on, but it's really important to understand what's going on here. Essentially, you're just trying to justify the cost of something. I'm spending this much because I'm going to gain that much. Internal rate of return, a technique used to make decisions. And you've got to be. So hey guys, I apologize if the mic picked that up, but I swear, sometimes I have the worst luck recording these videos. My phone was just screaming there's a tornado warning, and that's just, okay. Well, anyway, back to the class. So internal rate of return is a technique used to help make decisions about capital expenditures. It calculates a figure that allows two or more alternative investments to be compared. A larger internal rate of return indicates a better investment. See also net present value and net and return on investment we'll go over. What does this mean? This means that when you're writing a business case to C-level executives or whatever level executives you need to write it for, you need to include more than one possible solution, and you want to usually have a matrix comparing the solutions. You know, I like, you know, you'd start with I like number A, but here's B, C, and D. Different organizations usually want to have X amount of alternative initiatives, investments available, and then they will compare, and then you list the positives or the negatives of each one. Usually, I like to have at least 3. You know, the one you like and then 2 alternatives. And another piece of advice is be honest about the pluses and minuses. Don't skew, don't mess with the information, don't mess with the data. Just present it very objectively and precisely, and as best as possible, try and compare apples and oranges. But again, from a definition perspective, this is important that you understand what the definition is for the exams. Net present value, a technique used to help make decisions about, again, capital expenditures. It compares cash inflow with cash outflow. Positive net present value indicates that the investment is worthwhile, and obviously negative would say it isn't. So what they're looking for is essentially, I'm paying X for something, I'm going to see a return of Y. So it's like if you buy a stock at $10 a share, and a year later it's worth $1,000 a share, that was a very good positive cash flow. You put out $10, you got back $1,000, that's great. More difficult to quantify this usually in a business case, because sometimes it's very difficult to really yield it, but what you're looking for is, in a practical perspective, you're looking for evidentiary material. If it is a software or a piece of hardware, sometimes a manufacturer can give you white papers or business cases from other customers that have given them the information, and then you can reference and say, well, hey, you know, Hewlett Packard, they bought this whatever hardware X, they spent $1 million and they saved $5 million the first 3 years of having this particular appliance running. Things like that. So you can try and reference other people if possible, white papers. But again, this is a pretty difficult one to quantify from a business case perspective. Return on investment, a measurement of the expected benefit of an investment. Again, expected. In the simplest sense, it is the net profile of investment divided by the net worth of the assets invested. Also see net present value and value of investment. So return on investment, again, you're investing X, you're going to get Y. Obviously, you want the return to be greater than what you put in. Again, these are sometimes difficult to really quantify. If you can get white papers or example data points from other cases is good. You know, nobody's expecting you to have a crystal ball and magically predict this accurately 100%, but, you know, do the best you can. And always remember to be honest and not embellish numbers. If anything, I personally, when I do these, I tend to go more conservative. And that way it's more realistic. I like to keep, I would rather have expectations be a bit lower and then you deliver much beyond the expectations than have expectations be too high and then you deliver below the expectations and you don't look very good. VOI, or value of investment, a measurement of the expected benefit of an investment. Value of investment considers both financial and intangible benefits. By intangible, they might mean like the reputation of your organization, employee morale, productivity boosts in how fast people are able to do things like that. Again, I know these slides seem tedious and boring, guys, but I cannot overemphasize it for the foundation exam, for V4, for V3. Terminology is really, really critical, and understanding these terminologies. I've had people who told me they just studied the vocabulary I gave them and they passed the tests. So if that helps as a motivating factor, the vocabulary alone will get you probably past the exam. And it'll make you really knowledgeable too. A supplier is a third party responsible for supplying goods and services, very important, guys, services too, that are required to deliver IT services. Examples of suppliers include commodity hardware, software vendors, network, telecom. Yeah, you pretty much, this is pretty self-explanatory. Most of you probably know what a supplier is. Just understand it can include physical goods and it can include services as well. It doesn't have to be a physical deliverable to be a supplier. Pattern of business activity. We're going to go over this in more detail later in the presentation, but this is really important. PBA is a workload profile of one or more business activities. Patterns of business activities are used to help the IT service provider understand and plan for different levels of business activity. We're going to go over this later on in the presentation, but essentially this is what I would say is where you want to get into things like network trending. So if it's the holidays, for example, let's say you're Amazon and Christmas is coming around the corner, they know that for Christmas, the demand on their website is going to increase exponentially. So I guarantee you that they already have processes in place to spin up more VMs and more load balancers for the website, because they expect to have a lot more traffic hit the website. User profile, or UP, a pattern of user demand for a service. Each user profile includes one or more patterns of business activities. Here's our PBA again. Again, if you're Amazon, you better believe that they monitor your origin IP address, what state you're in, what time of day it is, even what country you're logging in from, so they can figure out, oh, wow, people in New York, during the holidays, whatever, between X and Y time window is when the traffic is the greatest. This is they create user profiles they can also do it by demographic. If you're by your gender, they might do it by your age. I don't know exactly the depth of granularity Amazon goes into, but I can tell you most organizations want to collect as granular of information as they can, because it helps them understand the patterns and adjust for them accordingly. Strategic, this is the highest of 3 levels of planning and delivery. We have strategic, tactical, and operational. Strategic activities include objective setting and long-term planning to achieve the assigned vision. So what this means is strategic goals. This is the big picture, guys. This is the C-level executives. This is like, where do we want the organization to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now? This is very big picture, not lots of detail, but we want to increase our market share by 10%. We want to break through this age group. We want to, increase sales of this product line, things like that. That's what strategic means. Tactical, we're in the middle of the 3 levels, planning on delivery. Medium-term plans required to achieve specific objectives. Now we're in the weeks and the months. Now we're getting more into the weeds. We're not so much long-term, we're not in years, we're not even decades, we're in weeks and months. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes 9 months, it varies, but this is like the medium area. Operational, this is our day-to-day. Short-term, we're concerned about delivering that service to you, the customer, right then and there. As a business and organization, you're looking at, this is it. For live, this is live work, and this does actually also align with service operations, which is the day-to-day function of the company, which is a later presentation. But just know, strategic is your long-term, tactical is your middle of the road, weeks, months, and operational is day-to-day, daily. We're really interested in things as they happen. Utility and warranty. This was covered in the introduction of ITIL video. You can watch that if you want. Here I'm going to go in a little bit more detail into it. So again, this slide was in the previous presentation, but again, I'll bring it up again. You have to understand that your customers, be them internal or external, are not buying a drill. They're buying the hole it lets them make. They're not buying your routers, your switches, your intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system. They could care less about that stuff. They want to be able to access their files from the servers. They want to be able to get to the network. They want to be able to get to their customers. They want their customers to be able to send emails with attachments, so on and so forth. They don't care about what's going on behind the scenes. They could care less how much RAM is in the servers, what kind of video cards are in the servers, what your backplane is, what type of firewalls you're running. They don't care about that. They care about being able to do their job. And that's what you really have to understand. So value of a service is considered to be the level, the service that meets the customer's expectations. And this is where we come back to that saying that only the customer can determine value, because they're the ones who are setting up the expectations, not you. You don't tell the customer what they want. They tell you what they want. And then it's your job to achieve it. So they have their desired objectives. They have their expectations. Your job is to make sure that your service meets or exceeds their expectations, but doesn't fall short. And for that, you have to really understand what the customer wants to do. Utility and warranty are huge concepts in ITIL. They are on all the exams, you should understand it. Utility, fit for purpose. Warranty, fit for use. Let's go over that in more detail because it's kind of confusing at first. So utility, the reason I put the little pocket knife is the functionality offered by the product to meet their need. Well, I need a bottle opener. Well, I need a screwdriver. So what the service does, what the pocket knife does the bottle opener allow me to open up a bottle cap? It does. Great. That's what I want. It lets me do it. Awesome. It's fit for purpose. If it meets the requirements of the customer, it's fit for their purpose. So example, a service which improves the ability of performance of processing sales orders would be considered a utility. Okay, great. Any attribute of a service that removes or reduces the effect of constraints on the performance of a task. I know this is a little bit ambiguous, a little bit confusing, but think of the pocket knife. Think about, does it have the bottle opener? I'm the customer. I want a bottle opener on my pocket knife. Do I have a bottle opener? Well, if I don't, is that pocket knife functionally working for me? No, it isn't. So it's not fit for purpose. It does not meet my utility needs. Warranty. The assurance that the product or service will meet the agreed requirements. How the service is delivered. Well, my pocket knife has a bottle opener, but you know what? It's so hard to get it out. I keep breaking my fingernail trying to get that bottle opener out. Is the bottle opener being delivered in a way that's good for me? No. So the warranty is not happening. It's not working correctly. It needs to meet the availability, capacity, reliability, continuity, and security for it to be fit for use. So if I can't open that bottle opener in that pocket knife, it's not meeting the availability. Thus, it's not meeting the warranty requirements. That's a mistake. I apologize for that, guys. A service which increases the speed or availability of a service may be considered a warranty. An attribute of a service that increases the potential of the business to perform a task. So again, think about the pocket knife, bottle opener. Really the key here is availability, capacity, reliability, continuity, security, fit for use. Warranty refers to any means by which the utility is made available to users. Again, we can go back to the pocket knife example one last time. The bottle opener is the utility. It lets me pop open bottle caps. Great. Warranty is, can I access that bottle opener when I need it? Well, oh, I broke my fingernail again. I can't access it. It has no availability. It's no good. Utility is what the service does. Warranty is how it is delivered. If you remember just that one little sentence, you should be fine. Here's a little and or logic gate example. Utility, performance supported, constraints removed. Or, so it can be either or. Warranty, availability, capacity, continuity, security, and true, false, fit for use, fit for purpose. One thing I will tell you has been on every foundation test from V4 to V3 is they're going to ask you, warranty is, and it's going to say fit for use, fit for purpose, fit for ideas, fitness, whatever they want to do. At least know which one is fit for purpose, which one is fit for use. Now this should go without saying also, like, with IT security, you want to bake it in the beginning, but warranty and utility should be designed at the same time to save money. If we go back to our little bottle opener, we want to make sure the bottle opener is in the knife and that it can be easily opened at the same time. So the opening mechanism should not be so hard that it's breaking your fingernails. Service packages and service level packages. Again, this was in the introductory video. I go over the same concept here. I'm going to kind of present it in a different way, so it might be more understandable for some of you. What is in a service package? So a service package is made up usually of three things. We have our core, which is our basic critical services, which means if there is no core present, the package would not work. So whatever has to be there would be a core piece of the service package. The supporting provides differentiation or more use of the core services. So supporting service package would be additional things. And then our service level is the utility and warranty. So you see there's a little utility and warranty coming back. So we have our core service package, our supporting service package, and our service level package. Let's pretend you're an ISP. You charge a user $120 a month. The core services, and I know it's writing over it, might be your internet connection, your email address, and a website. This is our basic core services. Our supporting services are, well, we can give you a static IP address, we'll filter your spam, we'll give you a gig of web space, and we'll even offer voice over IP phones. The service level package, again, now we're talking utility and warranty. Well, your download speeds are going to be 30 megabits per second. We're giving you a data quote of 1 terabyte. We're giving you 500 meg or half a terabyte of cloud storage, and we're offering you 98% uptime. This would be an example of a service package that might be offered by an ISP. Service portfolio management. This is really a big concept, and the service portfolio is really the services you provide to your customers. So what kind of questions are we going to ask here? Why should the customer buy the services? What services are you offering? Why would they want to buy them from you? Well, we offer more reliable internet, better internet speeds. Why? Why buy them from you, not the competition? This is also where you should really understand who your competition is and what they're offering. Are there any pricing and chargeback models? This is a difficult one for some organizations to address, but it's really important you do, is, look at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is a SWOT table. We'll go over it later in another presentation, but you want to look at the strengths and weaknesses and the risks that your service provides. Can somebody sue you? Are there litigious risks to it? Are there reliability risks to it? You want to really do an introspective look at all this when you provide a service. How should resources and capabilities be allocated? This really has to do with what the expectations are of the customer are going to be driving this. What level of resource and capabilities does your organization have? What demand is this service going to put on your resources and capabilities? Is going to vary. If you're a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation, it might be very easy and very low resource and capability demands. If you're a smaller organization, it might be a much higher demand. Now, the service portfolio represents the commitments and investments made by the service provider across all customer market spaces. So what we're looking at today is the service portfolio. So what's in there is the service pipeline. These are services you're thinking about. They're not available yet to the customers. These are things that are coming. Your service catalog is what you are currently presenting to customers. This is what they can buy, they can view. And retired services would be things that are no longer, the CBA, cost benefit analysis, is showing that the cost to provide the service is no longer beneficial to the organization. It's costing us more than we're gaining from providing the service, or the return of providing the service is so negligible that it's not worth keeping it. Now, this thing's down here, you see the configuration management system, application portfolio, customer. These are going to be in future presentations, but I kind of want you to see how everything kind of ties in together. For the V4 Foundation and for the V3 Foundation, you are not going to need to know how all these tie together. Okay, they're not going to ask you, application portfolio management and configuration management system and service catalog, how do these integrate? So this is just a conceptual diagram, so you kind of understand the bigger picture of what's going on, but this will not be given to you on the test in this level of detail. So as we talked earlier, we have our retired services. They're no longer in use. Now, just because the service is retired doesn't mean you shouldn't keep track that it existed and have the details about it. Next, you got your service catalog. These are the live IT services, including those available for deployment. This is where you're going to have things like the business service catalog, visible to the customer, and then we have the supporting, the technical service catalog, visible to IT. And you'll notice there are two different catalogs. This is really important to know this. You should know what IT services are supporting what business services. This is really critical to know. Understand what IT does and what it directly supports from a business perspective. The service pipeline are things that are not yet available, but they're being worked on. All of these three pieces make up what's called the service portfolio, complete set of services managed by the service provider. The service knowledge management system, and I apologize if this is confusing. I do understand that there's a lot of information. I tried to present this in a manner which is as clear as possible. The service knowledge management system is a concept in ITIL. Here in this slide, I kind of present it like a database using database cylinders, because in most practical implementations of this concept, you're going to have databases. You're going to have a database that stores your retired services, your service catalog, your business service catalog, your technical service catalog, your service pipeline, and then the service portfolio is the overarching container for everything. And then you have the service, what we call a service lifecycle, which is from pipeline to catalog to retired. As far as if you're looking at this presentation from a test perspective, they might ask you, the service portfolio is contained within blank, the Service Knowledge Management System, SKMS. So our service catalog, we're articulating business needs, we're looking how we're responding to those needs, and here's the key. Multiple service portfolios may exist depending on customers. So you might have various service portfolios depending on if you have various customers. But what is really in the service portfolio? We discussed that these are active services, things that we are providing to customers. But what's inside of it? Requirements. Whose requirements? Customer requirements. What do they want? What do they need? Descriptions. What it is. What does it do, this service? Our value proposition. How does this make money for the organization? The business case, the justification for having that service there in the first place. Priorities. Certain services are going to take priorities over others. Are there any risks associated? There will always be risks. What are they? Our packages. How have we packaged this service? And obviously cost and pricing. What does it cost us to have this service available? And what are we pricing it at? So there are 4 steps to service portfolio management. This you will need to memorize. This will be on the tests if you're interested, looking from a test perspective. Define, analyze, approve, charter. You'll notice that it's also looks kind of like the Deming cycle, plan, do, check, act, that they're always kind of feeding each other. That's because that's how it works. You got to charter it, define it, analyze it, approve it. It's going to keep going in an infinite circle. Let's look at define. Use to validate portfolio data in terms of benefits, resources, capabilities, what it can do for the customer and what it cannot do. This is really important also. Make sure when you're defining a service, not only to say to yourself, well, I'm going to give my customer A, B, and C. That's great. What aren't you going to give to your customer? Never exceed your organization's maturity level. And this is important because you don't want to promise the customer something and then, like I said before, under-deliver. It's better to be a little bit more conservative with what you say the service can do. Like tell people, hey, you know what? Let me give you an example. My personal internet access in my home office is rated at 300 megabits. But when I do a speed test, I'm seeing 360, 370 megabits. I'm paying for 300 megabits, but I'm getting 370, sometimes even 400 megabits. So my chances of calling my internet provider and complaining are pretty much like 0 to none, right? I mean, I'm getting a great deal. They promised me 300, they deliver to me 370, 350, 400. So they've over exceeded what they said they're going to deliver. This is a great example of being conservative. Now, let's say my internet provider said, you know what, we're going to give you 400 megabits. And when I do speed tests, I'm seeing 350, 370. You would obviously be kind of perturbed and not happy. It's like, hey, they're under delivering. So it's always better to be a little bit more conservative and then deliver beyond, and then you're going to have much happier customers. Analyze. Maximize portfolio value, align, prioritize, and balance supply and demand. Questions asked here are what? Long-term goals of the service organization. What services are required to meet these goals? Again, look at the IT level. What IT supporting services are needed? What capabilities and resources are required? And how do we get there? This is where you're looking at the IT portfolio, things that are behind the scenes, the supporting services. And the reason you want to analyze is you want to ask yourself, can we really do this? Well, we want to deliver at level X. Do we have the infrastructure to support level X? And again, be conservative. Don't max out your supporting infrastructure. You know, assume for 75% capacity. Okay, can we meet these service levels at 75%? We can, great. Now we've got a 25% buffer. We'll try and deliver at 90% or 95%. We'll try and over-deliver. Then if we occasionally drop down a bit, we're still okay because we're above that 75% threshold. Approve. Finally, approve the portfolio. Authorize the services and resources needed to deliver the services. And charter. Plans and tracks to progress the service across the portfolio. Allocate required resources used to schedule and manage. Design the service, transition, change, retirement. Service portfolio review of existing services. So, renew. These services meet functional fitness criteria, but fail technical fitness. Functionally it works, but technically it doesn't. We need to renew it. We need to reestablish the technical side of that service. Replace. The services are unclear, overlapping business functionality. They're just sloppy. They're not good. We need to replace those services. Retain. Largely self-contained, well-defined assets, processes, system boundaries. These services are well-designed, relevant to the organizational strategy. There's nothing to do. They're working good. They're delivering to the customer expectations. We're happy with the service. We're going to retain it. Refactor, sorry. Often services that meet technical and functional criteria of the organization, but display fuzzy processes and system boundaries. In these cases, the service can be refactored to include only the core functionality with common services used to provide the remainder. More complicated, but know that definition later. And obviously retired services do not meet minimum levels of technical or functional fitness. So notice on top of renew, they meet functional fitness but not technical. Retire is they don't meet any of it. They don't meet the technical or the functional. They're ready to get rid of. And the last one we have is rationalize. Used to address portfolios that offer services which in fact are composed of multiple releases of the same operating system, service, or application. So maybe you have duplicates, but there's a reason for it. In this case, from an exam perspective, you just want to know these definitions. What is renew, replace, retain, refactor, retire, rationalize? They might give you like a definition type question on those. So coming back to our service portfolio again, we have run the business. Investments centered on service operations or maintaining the status quo. Core, non-discretionary. Grow the business. So what kind of service, what is our service portfolio's goal? Is it to run the business? Now we can grow the business. Growth, discretionary. We want to grow the scope. We want to enter different markets or transform the business. Venture. Initiatives in our new market space, do different things. So this is the different types. So this is where you want to understand what your service portfolio does. Obviously, the higher you go up this hierarchy, the greater the risk. Running the business, your day-to-day running, our portfolio just runs the business, lowest risk. Anytime you try and grow or change something, especially grow a business, there's going to be some risk. And obviously transform the business is, transform, think venture capitalists. They're investing in something new, unknown, greatest amount of risk. So financial management. Account fully for the financial resources consumed with IT services. There's another mistake there. I apologize, guys. And attributes the costs of the service delivered on. Okay, so what are we talking about? Financial management. Oh my gosh, that hanging T is just horrible. Management is really just justifying how the money is being spent. You know, this is kind of a little bit beyond business cases like day to day. You know, IT opportunities, business opportunities. You want to. Financial management is concerned about how is the money being spent, justifying it. Business cases, things like that are going to be found here. Funding, IT accounting, chargeback, which is optional. You know, funding, predicting expected and future requirements for funds to deliver agreed upon services, and monitoring and adhering to the defined budget. So this is our funding. You know, how much money do we need to run the service? IT accounting enables IT organization to account fully for the way its money is spent. You know, you're given a budget of whatever, $1 million a year, 2 million, 10 million, who knows. How are you using it? You know, well, risk assessments this, firewall maintenance this, software this, blah, 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 blah. You want to really account for all where the money's going. Chargeback, this is, not all organizations do this. Some do, some don't. It's not really a physical change of money. It's more like on a paper base. So like Department A consumed X amount of resources. Department Y consumed Y amount of resources. So charging customers for the use of the IT services. Usually this is an internal thing. Personally speaking, I'm not a big proponent of this. I don't think it's a very efficient thing to do within an organizational boundaries. But again, no actual payment is required is the key here. Some organizations do this, some don't. I personally am not a big proponent of it myself. Demand management. This is really, really important, and this is also important if you're a service organization. Understand and influence. The key here is influence customer demand. I know we all like to think that that's all, you know, there is no influence, but organizations do this all the time. Apple does this, Microsoft does this. Everybody tries to influence your behavior. This is where we have patterns of business activity. You know, and by influencing, for example, you know, a new iPhone comes out. Apple's trying to influence your behavior to buy that iPhone. They're going to make it look very nice, very exciting. Android comes out with a new phone. Everybody's goal is to try to get you to buy it. So capacity management is supported initially by service strategy, where the decisions and analysis of business requirements and customer outcomes influence the development of the patterns of business activity, lines of service, and service options. Now in ITIL we have what's called the service belt, the service process and the business process. It's very important you understand how these integrate together. So we're going to have our delivery schedule. Our service process is running at one speed, and our business process is should be running at the same speed. The key here is that this little conveyor belt, both service process and business process should be running at the same speeds. Driving this is going to be our demand pattern and our delivery schedule. Now capacity management, again, I apologize for the typo, is driven by demand management. And here at the bottom you can see incentives and penalties to influence consumption. So we try and make sure that this conveyor belt is running, and we do it by either giving incentives or penalties. So I give you an example. I saw a commercial for Sprint where they're saying, hey, buy the Galaxy Note 10 for 50% off. It's an incentive. Hey, switch to Sprint. We'll give you this phone. We'll give you this shiny bauble at 50% off what it normally costs. Now, you better believe they also know that, wow, the demand management, their network has to be set up to handle the newer capacity of newer customers jumping on the network. So, but all organizations need to do this because you want to have a clear understanding of the demands upon your network and your services. Now I want to go over some of the other processes. Service design, which is going to be the next presentation, is where we have capacity and availability management. Service transition, Change in service validation and testing can ensure appropriate levels of warranty are provided. This will give you guys an idea how the other books of ITIL kind of integrate into here. Service operation can optimize the availability of staff based on patterns of demand, and continual service improvement can identify opportunities to consolidate demand or introduce improved incentives or techniques to utilize influencing demand. So these are how each of these books can help in demand management. There are two ways to influence demand, according to ITIL. Physical and technical restraints, restrict the number of connections, push down available bandwidth if you use too much of it, have different running times, and of course financial chargeback, which again, as we said, you're not really exchanging real money, but from an internal perspective, if you want to control your departmental uses and things like that. A little bit of ITIL FYI section. Service strategy activities. Define. Understand the relationship between services and strategies. Understand the customers. Understand the opportunities. And classify and visualize your services. This is really important. You really make sure you understand who your customers are, internal and external. Create a service portfolio that represents opportunities and readiness of a service. Provide to serve the customer and the market. Define the value, network, and improve capabilities and resources are assets to increase the service performance and potential. And preparation for execution. Strategic assets for prioritizing. It looks like that score actually got cut down. But these are kind of ideas of action plans for strategy. Remember, part of any service, and it's not in the slide deck, but is to remember that you want to make sure you're also driving customer confidence in the service you provide. So not just providing a service, but that level of confidence that you'll be able to keep providing that service. Remember we talked about, if you guys watched the introduction video, today IT guys is like a utility. It's like flicking a light switch, turning on a faucet. You turn on your faucet, you expect drinkable water to come out of it. You flick a light switch, you expect your lights to come on. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what your power source is. It's hydroelectric or wind or geothermal or nuclear or coal, but you want your lights to turn on. That's all you care about. That's what this means also. It's not just about having a service, defining it, controlling the demand, and all that. It's making sure that people have confidence in your ability to keep delivering that service when they want it. There are three types of service providers according to ITIL. Type 1, and this you should memorize if you're taking the test, embedded within a business unit. Keyword here, guys, is embedded in the business unit. Type 2, shared service unit. An internal service provider provides shared IT services to more than one business unit. And type 3, external service provider. It provides IT services to external customers. This is also a great question you can ask yourself if you're currently in the IT field. Does my IT department service just one department, numerous departments, or are we servicing external customers as well? Every business should focus on both financial and non-financial impacts of the proposed project or service. Really, really important. When you're doing a business case about a service, you want to look at the financial and the non-financial impacts. Reputational, customer perception of the company, things like that should all be taken into consideration. And again, value is defined by the customer. You do not define value. Okay, so value according to ITIL is defined by three pieces. Business outcomes, perceptions, and preferences. Now the key here is one in green, the perceptions. We're going to go over the next slide, is really, really important. And we'll explain to you why very soon. So perceptions are influenced by the customer's self-image, actual position in the market, and if they're a market leader and a risk taker. So this is a really important graphic which we're going to go over now. First, there's the reference value. And this essentially says this is where the customer sees themselves now. Now, by customer, this could be an internal department or it could be an external customer. This is one of the most important things to try and understand, and it's also the most difficult to quantify, is where does the customer see themselves now? Do they see themselves as a market leader? Do they see themselves lagging behind? If you're dealing with external customers, I highly recommend use like Gartner or some other resource to try and figure out where that customer sees themselves in the market. Now you are going to be pushing this positive difference. By using our services, or in your business case, for example, you're going to be saying, wow, by implementing this doohickey, we're going to gain this much benefit. The negative difference is what is also really difficult to quantify, but this is what the customer sees as a negative. Oh, it's going to cost me more money. Oh, it's not going to be as good as I think it is. You're trying to reduce that negative difference. So what you have, the net difference, is really what, so the positive difference is what you think it's worth, but the net difference is really what it is really worth at the end of the day. Because remember, the customer defines the value of the service, be it internal or external. Your goal is to try and reduce that negative difference, that red block, as small as possible, so the losses from utilizing the services, be them real or perceived, are maximized. And that what yields the economic value of the service. Now, when I say economic value, I'm not meaning a intrinsic financial number. Again, guys, remember, value determined by customer, and what the service yields to them is in the eye of the customer. It is rarely going to be just a straight financial transaction. There's going to be some emotions involved, things like that. You need to take all that into consideration. So the negative difference, that's what you need to try and reduce when you're doing a business case, when you're selling a service, either be it internal or external. You're trying to reduce that negative difference so you can increase the perceived economic value of the service from the customer's perspective. Resources are easy, capabilities are difficult. Just a little factoid about ITIL, I wanted to throw that in there. We're coming to the end of the slideshow, but just want to give you guys an idea of service strategy, or what you covered today, your ITIL budgets, patterns of business activity, and service portfolio information. Next presentation, service design, we're going to talk about new and changed service assets, service catalogs, service level agreements, operational level agreements, which are in there, should be OLAs and OLSs, and user contracts, testing and validation criteria. Service transition, we're taking the service live. This is testing, validation, change authorization. Service operation, the service is live, it's running. And then continual service improvement, we're going to talk about the 7-step service improvement process. The reason this slide is important is to explain to you guys that you don't have to start ITIL from service strategy and go to service design, go to service transition, operations, continual service improvement. You can start wherever you're comfortable with within your organization. You can start at continual service improvement. You can start at service transition. It really doesn't matter. As you can see, ITIL is not a linear framework. It's very dynamic, and things feed into each other, and they feed back and forth. There's a lot of cross-communication along all the different processes within ITIL. So this ends this presentation. I hope it was helpful. I apologize for any interruptions, and I hope the audio is better in this presentation. From what I'm seeing from my end, it does look like it's an improvement over the Blue Yeti. No negative about the Blue Yeti. I think it's an awesome microphone. It's just for this type of presentations, I just think the headset works better. When I do demo videos of different products and stuff like that, I'll probably use the Blue Yeti, or we'll see, whichever one works. But the headset, I think, just works better for these PowerPoints. So thank you again. Please like and share if you like this video. Please subscribe, push the little notification button. You can go to Patreon if you want. I do this because I like to teach, and this is a great hobby. So I hope all of you have a great day, and I hope you come subscribe and see some new videos as they come out. Okay, thanks everyone. Take care.